Welcome to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, and capital raisers in the world to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer yourself, your life, your marriage, and use real estate as your wealth creation vehicle so that you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and contribution. If what you're after is having it all, if what you desire is becoming the best version you can be across all areas, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, sentimentally, and financially, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best of the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, knowledge, experience, and skills so that you can go out and crush it financially and across all areas of your life. Grab pencil and paper, sit back, enjoy, and you are welcome to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we interview some of the best, biggest, and most experienced real estate investors in the world to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, the skill sets, and everything you need to conquer yourself, your life, your marriage, and use real estate as your wealth creation vehicle so that you can have a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and contribution. So today I have Powell Chee, I'm sorry, man. Powell Chee with me. He's managing partner at Radiant Storage. He owns over 5,000 units in self-storage units, and he also owns over 1,100 multifamily units, and he's founder of Multifamily Masters. I've had a few guests that also have something to do with that, so he's the founder of that. And thank you very much, Powell, to be here, man. I appreciate it, and you're welcome to the show.
Alex, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here and very grateful to be a guest on your show.
My pleasure, man. I'm also grateful to have you and to have the opportunity to talk to you, get to learn from you, connect with you, and provide value to anyone who listens. So the first thing that I do with my guests, man, is I ask them to walk us through their real estate investing journey in 75 seconds or less.
Awesome. I love that. So let me just start with I bought my very first house in 2015. So I come from the sales background. I was in corporate sales, and I was doing fairly well. And so I decided to buy a house in 2015, which was a single family house in Kansas City, although I live in Southern California. And then from there, I realized I needed to scale faster than just going with a single family house. So I bought an apartment building, a 40-unit apartment building in Indianapolis. The next year I bought another one. And then the following year after that, 2019, I was involved in 5 different syndications, all 100 units or more, with general partner on all of them. And then brought us to 2020. 2020 was COVID. So I didn't buy anything during COVID, but I actually decided to add another asset class to my portfolio. And that's the asset class turned out to be self-storage. And from there, I decided to buy my very first one, January 2021, closed on it, really liked it, thought it was great, thought I could scale it. So then I bought 5 more properties that year, 2021. And now this is August 2023. So we are, I'm at 16 different locations right now. So that brings us up to current. Hopefully that was under 75 seconds.
No, you were good. You were good,
Okay.
Man. That was perfect. So 16 locations and over 5,000 self-storage units then.
Yeah, that's correct. All right.
Yeah, that's crazy. But man, I have something. I'm curious about something. How do you go from like buying a house to then buying a 40-unit building all of a sudden like that?
Yeah, you know what? It was for me, the big step really wasn't buying the building. It was realizing that I could do this out of state. And when I realized I could do this out of where I lived in Southern California, but I could buy something in say Kansas City, like a single family house, then realizing, hey, if I can do that, I should be able to buy an apartment building. And that apartment building ended up being a 40-unit apartment building that I got in Indianapolis. And that was really just the sense of like, I just need to scale this faster. I can't buy one house at a time. And that's just not going to get me to where my goals are. It's not going to get me there fast enough. So yeah, it was really just like learning a lot of education, learning from single family to multifamily, but then getting around as many experienced and interested in people that were interested in the same thing that I was doing, getting around as many of those people as I could, and yeah, learning from them as well as learning kind of like learning on the job, right?
Yeah, for sure. So so the breakthrough that you had was the fact that you could do this from abroad, right? You
Yeah.
didn't have to do this in the
Mhm.
same state or in the same city that you live in. But could you walk me a little bit deeper into a little bit more with more detail into
Mhm.
how that first acquisition of your first 40 unit multifamily apartment building went?
Yeah,
Like,
sure, sure. Absolutely. So, first thing I did was education, right? So, in order to get educated, I was looking around and figuring out how to underwrite. So that was the most important thing for me. It was figuring out how to underwrite deals. Okay. And after searching around, I was able to find a deal analyzer and got fairly good at it, and started analyzing just deals after deals. And so my markets that I chose three markets. I chose Kansas City because I already had a house there. I chose Indianapolis, and I chose Memphis. Those were the three cities that I was looking at, and looking for properties in my area. Now, one thing that I did also feel that gave me a way to focus is that I knew how much money I had to invest, right? It
okay,
was basically mostly my money, right? So it's really just my money. And I knew what I could do to invest. And I said, if I have this much money, I know that I can buy this type of property, or this much, I can spend this much to buy a property using leverage, right? It was basically,
for sure.
about four times as much as that I had. Um, and at that point, I could eliminate any deal that really wasn't inside of my range of my purchase price range, right? So then I didn't have to look at things that were like $2 million, $3 million, $10 million. It was like that stuff was great to look at and fun and think about. But I was like, that realistically, I just don't have that strong of a chance to buy one of those. So let me just look at something that's in my range. And that really helped me hone in on what I wanted to buy and what was available for me to buy in any of those markets. And then as I was analyzing, I came across a deal. It was actually online. It was listed, but it was listed with a residential broker. And at that time, she put it on some kind of weird website. It wasn't even like a very well-known website. I don't even remember how I actually got to that website. I actually was just clicking, like I was clicking brokerages, and then I was clicking agents and where they worked at and what listings they had. And I was clicking through and just kept clicking. And I ended up, I think, on like Indiana's Business Exchange website or something like that. It wasn't even like a real estate specific site, and it was listed there. I saw it and I was like, that's interesting. Just looking at that, the age of the property, the price of the property, I was like, I'm interested in this property. And then I just called the broker right away. I just called the listing. She said, yeah, it's available. We had it up for about 2 weeks now. Got some interest, and so if you'd like to, I could send you some information. I was like, jump on it right away. Got her back a price, and then we just started negotiating from there, and we landed at a price that was favorable for all parties, and then we yeah, just ended up closing on the deal. Now a lot of things lined up for me in that deal, but the first things was you got to take action. Like
Yeah.
if I never called that broker when I saw that deal, or if I was never analyzing enough deals to really understand what's a good deal just by a flash on the screen, if you never get to that point, you kind of lose these opportunities. So, I went through analyzing many, 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 many deals before I really landed on this one.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that that I want to take out from this story, man, which I think are really important character traits. So there's a saying. I'm Mexican. I don't know if you can like notice from my English, but there's a saying in like Mexico that says, I mean, when you translate it, it comes down to you gotta be aware, measure your limits or be aware of your limits. Not that you have any, but there's another saying that says you gotta have your foot on the ground, right? And know your
Mhm.
limits, right? Like measure your limits. So that's what you did, right? So you had your foot on the ground, and even though and I mean you probably dream big, you probably have big goals, but at that moment, you had your feet on the ground and you measured your limits, right? You knew where your limits were and you weren't like on fantasy land, which is something very
Yeah.
important, right? For
Yeah.
any real estate investor out there.
I think you just want to be grounded in reality, right? And what you could get done fast. I could have waited and tried to get a bigger property or analyzed a lot more that were outside of that range, but I really wanted to get in something sooner than later. I thought I could do it. I wanted to, I just took an assessment of where I was, And like you said, just with that assessment, just figured out like, okay, let me eliminate a lot of this stuff. Because there's, you're dealing with real estate. There's so many things out there, right? You can
Yeah,
just
for sure.
spend all the time studying and reviewing stuff, right? But if you're actually trying to do it, it's better to hone in on a specific asset class or asset type or things like that.
Yeah, and I want to keep focus on that topic, on the topic of focus actually. So the other thing, man, is so you were focused, right? So in business, marketing 101, it's having your ideal client avatar, right? Like focusing on who is it that you want to serve. In real estate, same thing. You want to have your like ideal property avatar, right? You want to know what kind of properties you're going after. And in your case, the properties that you were going after were based on your budget, right? That's a good indicator. So I just wanted to like hone in that because that's such an important factor that a lot of real estate investors breeze over, and then they just they waste years, right, looking at a bunch of properties because they think that they could invest, they can invest in the entire United States, when the key is, like you said, picking one or three markets, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So focus is another very important thing. And then I had something that I wanted to talk about, but I just lost it. But let me go to the next thing.
Yep.
So the
Sure.
first thing that you started learning, man, was underwriting and analyzing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing that a lot of beginner multifamily real estate investors are trying to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
where do you suggest for any investor out there listening that may want to start learning about underwriting and analyzing? Where do you suggest them to go, or what do you should suggest them to do?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays there's a lot more resources out there than were before. But you got to find a tool, right? An underwriting tool, and by that underwriting tool, I mean some type of Excel spreadsheet. Some of them are online, web based. But you got to have something like that. And I had like an Excel spreadsheet, and you got to find that find one of those and use it. And what I tell people also is like if you have a network of people that are using the same spreadsheet, that's the one that you want to use because then you can talk the same language. Because a lot of the spreadsheets that are out there, they do a lot of the very similar things. There's going to be a little differences and nuances here and there, but they all in general are good spreadsheets. They and can get you what you want, all right, to analyze a deal, to change things in the deal and see how it changes the output. Um, and so that's the initial thing. It's like you got to get one of these tools, get your hands on one of these tools, and then you got to start getting deal flow coming in, which means talking to brokers, getting on their lists, getting them to send you offering memorandums, and you start putting that information from that offering memorandum into that analyzer and analyzing the whole thing. But not just like putting the numbers in and then going, oh, doesn't look like a good deal. Well, that doesn't really help you. What you've got to get to the point is at what number does this become a good deal, and what would be my offer price? So your deal that you might look at, you might say it might be listed at $6 million. Let's just say like $6 million, and you're going to say, well, you look at it and you go, oh, that's overpriced, but you don't have no basis for it. Well, you want to get to a point where you can say, well, it's overpriced at $6 million, but at 4.8, it's actually a pretty good deal. And so
Hmm.
if I was to come in and offer something, I'd offer 4.6, knowing I have a little bit of a buffer to get to 4.8. And I will, and if I can get, and if they're willing to sell at 4 point, anywhere in between 4.6 and 4.8, I'm interested in buying this deal, right? And that's what you want to get to, not just the point of saying it doesn't work, doesn't pencil out. You got to get to an actual point where it says this is the number that it would work. This is my number that I would come in at, and then give those numbers to the broker, right? And
Yeah,
that's what
nice. For sure. So yeah, so in my experience, all it takes is to Google, right, an underwriting model for multifamily real estate, and then you get a bunch of them, right? You get a
yeah.
bunch of multifamily underwriting models on real estate that you on Excel that you can download, and then it all comes down to like playing with them and really getting comfortable with them, and even getting to the point that you can adapt some of the models to like what you feel is good for you, right? To like
Mhm.
yeah, so to the point that you get comfortable. So yeah, that's a good advice. So I remember what I wanted to ask you, man.
Mhm.
So you used your own money
Mhm.
to invest and buy that first 40 unit apartment building.
Mhm.
So then did you save, or I mean, you had for the down payment, you used leverage for the rest, obviously.
Yep.
So what was the journey, man, for you to gather up some money to invest in that multifamily deal? How did the journey
Yeah.
of coming up with that money look like?
That was really from my W-2 job that I had, right? So I was in sales before, and did pretty well in sales. And at the time I was, single guy. And so I was doing pretty well, and was able to just save up that money. So that's what a lot of my money was just going to, because I was thinking, well, where am I going to put this money? Am I going to put it in a 401k? Am I going to put it in IRA or whatever, things like that? Or where am I just going to put it? Just invest it in buy somebody's stock? I didn't really want to do all that. And so when I got the chance, I was like, I'm going to take all that money that I've saved up and put it towards a property. Now, I will tell you also that 2017, when I bought this property, the prices were a lot different. I mean, if I told you like the prices that we talk about, that I bought that 40 unit apartment building, you'd be like, oh, I'll buy that thing. I'll buy that thing right
Yeah,
now, because it's
for
just not,
sure.
you can't find that price anymore. So yeah.
Cool. But regardless, man, that's another really good character trait. And I always like to hone in on that, right? The character traits that really are the key, or the the principles behind someone's success, right? So
Mhm.
like saving, a lot of people who are who have a sales job and are making a high income because they're good at sales, which I think was your case, burn that money, or spend it on girls and parties and drugs and alcohol and all of that.
Mhm.
But you were saving it, right?
Mhm.
Maybe
Yep.
maybe not that much, but you were, right? You were.
Yep.
So
Saving
so
enough. Yep.
why?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So why,
Yeah.
man?
You know
What
what?
why?
For me, I've always, I knew that the W-2 was not going to be my future, right? I've always known that from a young age, that the W-2, having a job my whole life, was not going to be my future. Now, I didn't know what I was going to do, okay, but I just knew for some reason I didn't fit that role. My dad worked the same position for like his whole entire life. So I'm 40 something, 50 years. I just knew, I was like, I could not do that. I'm not going to be able to do that. And I know for me, I was willing to bet on me. So I took all that money that I had saved up, right, and I saved it. And first it was in 401k and other assets, and I just collected that. And then I said, you know what, I really feel like real estate is the way to go, and I'm going to bet on myself. Like I don't really want anybody else's money at this point. I mean, sure, I'd love to have investors, but I was very new to the game. I was still very
Yeah.
green, right? And I said, I don't want to screw up anybody else's money. Like if I screw up and I lose all my money, it's my money and it's my fault. But I'm willing to bet on me. And so let me worry about investors later. Let me do my deal now and learn on my own money, not learn on other people's money. So that is something that I felt was important at that first one.
So you knew what you wanted. You knew you wanted what you wanted was freedom, and you knew what you didn't want, which was to be stuck in a job for 40 years, like like other people that you had seen growing up. And so you knew what you wanted and what you didn't want. And actually, man, that takes me to a very important point. The people that listen to this podcast are all real estate investors. Some of them are passive, some of them are active, and a lot of them don't know yet, right? They're in a W-2 job. Even the ones that are active are still in a job as well, and they all are like you, right? They all know that what they want is freedom, and they all know that what they don't want is to be stuck, in the same place or in the same job for decades, possibly.
Mhm.
Um, so regardless, man, every single person that listens to this podcast and watches they're all either active real estate investors, passive real estate investors, or they aspire to do some kind of real estate investing, but they've all chosen to use real estate as a wealth creation vehicle. So so you're a really good example of the fact that they can do it as well. So I'm enjoying all the stories that you've told so far. But now let me go into, in the next couple of years after that, you became part of, I think, over 5 syndications, and you were general partner in all of them. So how do you become a general partner in, multiple syndications? I mean, maybe not all at the same time, but you were able to
Mhm.
successfully become a general partner in multiple syndications. So how did you do that, man?
Yeah. So this is where I started. This is where the networking really started to come in. So my network started to grow significantly at this point, right? In 2017, my network started growing because of the groups that I was associated with, the groups that I created as well, and the people that I was meeting. So I was meeting certainly people that were ahead of me, that they were doing bigger deals, they were syndicating. I wasn't doing that yet, and I was, learning from them, and being around these people really helped me to get to that point where I was able to just be part of the syndication, like, and be part of those teams. And so um And then really, I think one of the main points that you need to do at once you find those people is that you need to figure out what is your strong suit. Like, what is your strong point that you're bringing? What is the value that you're bringing to this group, right? Because you want to approach these people and say, hey, I know that when you have a deal or something, what can I do to help? What can I do to be part of your deal, right? And they'll say, yeah, great. I like you as a person. I think that we could work together well. You seem like you've got a good head on your shoulders, and we're in the same sort of wavelength mindset. But what would you bring? What is it you would bring? And so at this point, I was pretty comfortable with underwriting deals and finding deals because I've already found a couple myself and I bought them myself and analyzed them and underwrote them. But I was also, my network had grown significantly, and I felt like I had a strong network where I could bring in capital as well. So those are the two areas that I was able to bring value to these groups, is really on the acquisition side of helping them acquire property, as well as the capital side that I could probably bring in some capital to these deals. So if you can, for your listeners, those are the things that you want to figure out for yourself. What are you going to bring? And if you can only bring one or the other, I mean, obviously you got to bring a little bit more than just one or the other. But if you have a certain strength, like one of those sides is your strength, and the other one is kind of a secondary strength, then that's what you want to focus on, right? If you have a great network and you love people, then you should be like raising capital and talking to people about interest in what they can do about raising capital. If you're more of a analytical type and you just want to plug numbers in and run numbers all day, and that's the thing you love, and you don't really necessarily need to network, you don't feel like you like to do that, well, then you focus on the analytical side and finding deals. But at the same time, you still got to network. You still got to be around these people that are going to give you opportunities, right? So you still got to be able to network.
Nice. All right. So basically, um, you need to get yourself around people who are where you want to be, who are the type of people that you want to become, who are doing the types of things that you want to do, and who have the stuff that you want to have. Get around them so that you can, get the opportunities to invest in their deals, and then really look in so that you can see where you're good at, hone in on that, and build some value, basically. So, man, can you tell me what groups like the Multifamily Masters could do for that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's many groups. Multifamily Masters was one. That was a group that I started in 2017, and it grew from, a small meetup group. I started with 8 people, and we were in a hotel lobby, and I was like, just created this meetup, and I was like hoping that people would show up, but I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to show up. There might be 0 people. It might be 1 person. I have no idea, but it was 8 of us, and we just networked really that whole first time. And then within 3 months or so, I already expanded to 3 locations within like 3 months.
Hello, morning kings and queens. At my company, Millionaire Network Automation, we believe in the power of networking. We believe that in real estate, your net worth is your network. This is why we help real estate investors raise capital by connecting them with their ideal investors and helping them build a massive network of their ideal investors in less than 30 days and with only 4 hours of work per week. If you're interested in this, click the link below in the description of this podcast to learn how you can propel your growth with a reliable system that will consistently help you connect with your ideal investors, build trust, add value, get your investors to promote you and put you in front of more of their investor friends, and raise more capital faster and in a much more effortless way so that you can achieve your financial freedom and still have the time and the energy to pour into every single other area of your life. So go watch the training, and you're going to have the opportunity to book a call to talk about how you can get this 100% done for you system implemented in the next 5 days. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later, and enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
And then within like, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, we were already up at like 10 different locations. And since then have gone on to, to be across the nation, right? But I mean, not only just Multifamily Masters, there's many other groups, and
Sure.
it wasn't like my first idea that I was the one that invented the idea of meeting up with real estate investors. There was plenty of other meetups that I still go to that I'm not part organizer or anything. I'm an attendee just to go there and meet with people, right? And just to be there in person and see who's doing what, and be excited to share, what we're doing as well. So I think that's really important to be around. I tell people that, look, you got to be there in person to meet people. I think that's really important. But still, you definitely have the opportunity to meet people online. There's still a lot of Zoom calls where you can meet people on Zoom, and that's great. But in person is, I think, a little bit better for me. But you still have the opportunity to do both, right? And you really should be taking advantage of both.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely both, right? It's not that like one is better than the other, right? Like both of them have their pros and cons. So for
Mhm.
example, with like digital, you don't have to travel or get on an airplane or a car, right? That's a huge pro. And then
Mhm.
things have changed, right? Like cars drive themselves, rockets go to space and then come back and land by themselves safely. And
Mhm.
there's the thing called ChatGPT that writes books for you. So
Mhm.
networking has changed as well, right? So
Absolutely. And from those networking events, like if depending on how you position yourself, if you position yourself as the person that's up there, that's a host, that's a presenter, or that's the leading, or you're a guest speaker, these are how you expand your network significantly, as well as potentially with that comes investors, people who want to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I would like to connect with you at some other time. Oh, here's my business card. Let's have some coffee. Let's meet online. Let's have a call." And I'd be interested to find out when your next deal is because I might want to invest in it, right? And so that's what happens when you're around this a lot and you do it consistently.
yeah, for sure. That's definitely has been my experience. So man, now I want to talk about your transition from multifamily
Mhm.
to self-storage, right? How did that happen, man? I'm
Yeah.
curious.
So the impetus for that was the thing that affected everybody, which was COVID, right? So when
Okay.
COVID came around, there was a lot of uncertainty with what was going on in multifamily, right? Like things were just uncertain.
How
Paying
come
rent,
people weren't paying rent? Oh, okay, yeah.
people weren't paying rent. You couldn't evict people. Courts were shut down. So even if you could, like, even if evictions were okay, the courts were like they weren't in session.
Mm,
Then there's a lot of different things going on, right? So a lot of that plus interest rates, right? The lending was all over the place because they were like, hey, we don't know we don't know what this is. So uh, I didn't really want to bring all my investors into that mix because
yeah.
I was just like, look, I don't. It's really uncertain. I can't be that certain of what's going on. So I don't want to bring any of my investors' money into that. So I said for at least 6 months, I'm not going to buy any multifamily, right? So I'm not going to buy anything during that time. So what am I going to do during these 6 months? Because I'm not just going to underwrite deals just for the sake of underwriting deals. That's just I don't know. It just sounds like uh, mind-numbing exercise to me. So I didn't want to do that. So I thought, you know what? At this time, I might as well take a look at a different asset class and just evaluate it to see if it's something that I like. If I don't like it, that's great. I can eliminate it. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't even want to think about it. But if it is something that I like, then at least I've added another asset class to my mix so that 6 months down the line, I can buy this class and I can buy this class.
Yeah.
And I might give myself more opportunities to be successful. So that asset class ended up being self storage, ended up being taking me about, so I guess I got my first one under contract in about like that 6 month time, right? And ended up closing it in about 3 months after that. Um, and from that point, I didn't really tell anybody that I was doing self storage. My whole network was all multifamily people at that time, and
Mm,
everybody it was just pure multifamily. And I said, well, I don't want to tell everybody that I'm looking at self storage, so let me just buy one first. So I really just told a small group of friends and family, and I said, hey, I reached out to 7 people. I said, "Hey, there's this deal. It's a self storage facility. It's going to be my first one. Never done it before, but I think it's great. I think that we're going to run it this way. And this is, I talked about it. I said, I think it's going to be a great investment. It's going to be my first one. You guys, are you interested?" And then 6 out of those 7 people said yes, and they invested with me. We went out and got the property, bought it. We liked it, and then once we got it, I said, okay, now I want to announce to everybody else inside of my network that we're not just looking at self storage. We actually already own a self storage facility that they weren't able to invest on. So, but they may be able to invest in the next one, right? And so that's what kind of opened up my self storage, I guess, investing.
cool. So you walked out the closet on single family on single. I mean, no, self-storage, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something interesting, man. So how come you were able to, as soon as you made the switch, get people to invest? How did you accomplish that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's because like over years of talking with people and having this relationship with people and repeated investors, as well as people who are very close to me, right? And they are always kind of asking me what's going on, and those are the people that I reached out to first. And I just said, this is what I'm going to do. They, like many of your investors, are investing in you personally, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, multifamily, they understand it. So that makes sense to them, right? But if you change a little bit, like I did, and you say, hey, I'm going to invest in a short-term rental, or I'm going to invest in whatever warehouse or something. All
It's
right.
still
Well, I
you.
mean, I understand it. It's you. Like, you believe in it. I believe in you. Okay. And you're going to make sure that you're a great steward of my money, right? Yes. Okay. Well, all right. Then I'm okay with it. Right. And, they look at numbers, and the numbers are going to be about the same. They're just going to be like, okay, I like you and I like what you're doing. All right. I'm going
Yeah.
to stick with
So man, you have over 5,000 self-storage units, and then you only have, well, only, I say only just because in comparison to the 5,000, right? 1,100 multifamily. So how
you.
come you've been able to like grow so fast in the self-storage area?
Yeah, and I should also preface that multifamily, a lot of times a unit count is a metric that is used kind of universally, right?
Yeah.
In self storage, unit count, although it is a metric, it's not as important as it
Okay.
is in multifamily, because in self storage you have such a wider range of unit sizes, right? So you could have like the same size facility could be
I
300
get
units.
it.
It's tiny small units, or it could be 150 units, and they're all larger, right? So the unit count isn't really the main metric. I usually just say it mostly because everybody that knows me and knows everybody that I know is still a multifamily person, so they understand what unit numbers are. But really, it's 650,000 square feet. So rentable
Got
square
it.
feet is really like the metric that you would use in storage. So in general, storage facilities end up having more units, right? There's more units than they are in multifamily, a comparable multifamily, right?
So so which asset class do you like the more? And I know it's like it's hard to compare them because again, both have their
Mhm,
pros and cons. But
mhm.
what's your experience been like, man?
It's I'm really the way that I should probably back this up a little bit too, because um, I know that it sounds a lot like I'm either a multifamily investor or I'm a storage investor, but I'm not really either one. I
Hmm.
am, and I've tried to tell my investors this, is that I'm a deal person. I'm looking for the best deal, and that deal that I'm looking for, yes, deal metrics like the returns are going to be very important, but it's also about who's the team, where it's located, what is the business plan, how soon, what asset class, what type of asset, things like that are all very important, and those help me determine to get into the best deal. So the best deals that I found recently have been in self storage. That that's just the best deals that I found. That doesn't mean that there aren't better deals that other people are finding. That's just the ones that I'm finding are better in self storage. So I'm buying more self storage now. If I find that another asset class has better deals for those same or similar types of reasons or criteria, then I could be very likely to say, hey, I I really like this industrial warehouse type of investment, and I will tell that to my investors. This is what I like. So um, I would like to just kind of clarify that too as well. It's like that's the type of investor I am, as I'm looking for what I think is the best deal.
Nice. Yeah,
So
I like
hopefully
that.
that
I totally get
sort of
it.
answers your question. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, at my
Mhm.
company, Millionaire Network Automation, we have a capital raising networking system that uses a podcast as a networking and capital raising tool to help real estate investors build a massive investor network and raise capital. And a lot of the times we're confused with a podcasting agency, and I tell them, no, no, we're not a podcasting agency. We're a networking firm, right? And
Mhm.
we right now
Mhm.
we just happen to use a podcast as a networking tool to connect with investors and expand our investor network. But if in the future, like a little gadget comes, uh, that helps you build network, we'll go and start using that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get you, man.
Makes
Um,
sense.
so so having the audience in mind, people who are looking for deals. Do you have any, to invest passively? Do you
Mhm.
have any deal going on? When it comes to self storage.
Um, right now, so we just closed our latest raise, and I just closed it earlier this week. So that's my last one that we have. Don't have any other ones right now, but that's the one that I just closed recently. It is for, it was for accredited investors. So it's one of those things that sometimes when you're that deal sponsor, you have to decide whether you're going to make it for accredited investors only, or you're going to make it open to accredited investors as well as non-accredited investors, so you can have more friends and family in there. And I've done both. So I've done both 506Bs where I've had friends and family, and I've also done 506Cs where it's just accredited investors only. I've also done a number of joint ventures. So I'm not syndicating the deal. It's a small group of us, and we're going out and acquiring the property, and then we're all actively involved in the whole thing. So I've done, I guess, all of those structures, and I continue to do all of them. It all depends on really like the deal size is what I feel like. So, but I actually prefer to do joint ventures more than I prefer to do syndications themselves.
Okay. Cool. So, and then for the people that are looking to become active investors, and they just want to go after the lowest hanging fruit, would you
Mhm.
say that investing in self-storage is a bit easier than investing in multifamily, or maybe it's harder, or maybe it's the same, or
I would say right now it's very similar. It's very similar. They're both very hot asset classes, right? There's a lot of interest in both of these asset classes. In self-storage, some of I guess the differences are that there's not as many self-storage facilities as there are apartment buildings, right? I
Hmm.
mean, every city has thousands of apartment buildings, right? Every city.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's 50 to 70,000 self-storage facilities across the whole United States, right? There's way more apartments. There's like millions of apartments, especially if you're talking from 5 units to plus. But even if you're talking from 20 units plus, there's still a ton more of multifamily than there are self-storage. The other thing is the difference between them is that the lending is different. Okay, and that's one thing that I thought would be easy to understand and easy to get a grips on and handle on, was that I came from a multifamily background. I know lending, and I know what the parameters are and the criteria that you need for agency debt, and and all the other programs that are out there. So I'm very familiar with that, and I thought, okay, this is going to be the easy part of learning about self storage. It was actually the most difficult part, and I don't necessarily mean most difficult as in it's hard to understand. It was just the most difficult um, to accomplish. All right, to get it funded, because there are banks or credit unions or lenders who love self storage, and they will lend on you. They will love to lend on you, but there are other ones that do not. Right, they don't want to, and there's some that say they would, but they're going to give you terrible terms, so that you're like, is this the terms that I'm going to get? This does not sound good, right? And that's a way of them saying, I don't really like self storage. I will invest with you if I'm totally safeguarded. I have all the advantages on my side, right? So they give you terrible terms. So you're like, I don't want to do that. So the lending side has been very kind of like, you have to learn and continually network inside the lending, with who the lenders are. And that's a really important piece, obviously, to getting the deals done. And that's one thing that I wouldn't say I struggle with, but I was like, had to put a lot more work into than I thought. I thought it was just gonna be, oh, it's easy, just make, have the liquidity, have the net worth, have the KPs, sign off, sign the loan, no problem, right? I was like, no, you got to go through a lot of different types of lenders to get these deals done. So I've had private lenders who have just, like an individual person that they just put up the whole thing for, they just put up the whole mortgage. I've had credit unions. I've had regional banks. I've had life insurance companies. I've had commercial mortgage-backed security, so like a CMBS loan. I've had my last one, seller finance, right? Seller finance getting done. So there's a bunch of different things, right? It's not just like kind of like multifamily where you're like, well, I'm just going to get a Freddie Mac loan, or I'm going to get a Fannie Mae loan, or I'm going to get a bridge loan to Fannie Mae, bridge loan to Freddie Mac. It's like, no, there's a lot of differences between all of those.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that and lending, right? The money part is a very important part. So,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you look at? So, in multifamily, a lot of real estate investors are big on value add. Is that the
Mhm.
case with self storage as well, or what do you
Mhm.
look in a self storage unit facility um,
Yeah.
that really makes you think, oh, this is a good deal?
Yeah, for me, like us at Radiant Storage, we're looking for value add to opportunistic deals, right? We're not really looking for stabilized deals. Well, I would tell you maybe stabilized here in the near future, but that's kind of a specialized case. Um, but in general, opportunistic or value add opportunities are what we're looking for, and we're looking for value add in one of four or a combination of any of these four areas.
Okay.
We are looking for low occupancy, right? So you take over a property and has 60% occupied, 65% occupied, even 50. We've taken over a couple of those, bought those. We've taken over ones that have low rent. So they're actually pretty full, 95% full, but the rent is low. Rent is very
Mm,
low compared to the market. All right. So we've taken over those. We've taken over ones that are uh, uh, expansion. So there's expansion possibilities, right? So that's the value add in there, is that somehow you can either add more units or you can convert something into some type of revenue generating endeavor at that property. And then the last one is operational inefficiencies. So what that means is, in what ways are the current operators running it, and how can we kind of cut some of those expenses from them, right? And almost all of our deals have some type of operational inefficiencies that we feel like we can cut the expenses from the way that they're currently running it.
what
So
would be an example of
the
operational
large
inefficiencies?
the main example here is that the way that we run these facilities, now this is not, we're non-traditional in this way, is that the traditional way of managing a self-storage facility is that there's a person in the office who is a office manager. They give you the tour, you sign the lease with them, they're there from 9 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, and they're on reduced hours on the weekdays, right? But that's the person you're going to. They handle sales, customer service, maintenance, whatever. They handle all of that, right? It's generally like one or two people. Well, we handle everything remotely. So we manage everything remotely, using leveraging technology, as well as call centers, as well as just kind of the way that we operate things. So we don't have that person in the office anymore, right? So now our payroll costs are reduced significantly. We still do have a maintenance crew who will go there to our properties and fix things. However, they're not customer facing, right? So they're not there for the customers at all. Customers can show up, they can scan the QR codes, they can go to our website, or they can use our call center and get all of that kind of sales part of it, and kind of enter their information entered and registered, all done
Like a
through the
self
phone
checkout.
or through the phone. Yeah, like a self checkout. Yeah, which reduces our payroll costs. And what happens is, when you're reducing costs like that, that effect happens immediately, right? So this is a little different than when you're thinking about value add properties, where I'm going to increase the rent over a 3-year period. I'm going to try to bump my rents 100 the first year, and then 50, and then 50, or whatever, things like that. It's like, now that may happen, that could happen in 3 years,
Mm.
but we don't really know. But you're trying to get there. And in this case, we're projecting that day one, we're reducing those payroll costs immediately. So that happens right away. We don't when the person's not in the office, we don't really have as much electrical bill or water bill or administrative costs for fixing computers, or buying pens and stuff like that, or whatever. You're just giving them bonuses, and uh, you know a lot of that cost is eliminated, right, or significantly reduced, right?
Mm.
So that's
So
that's one of the big ways that we have add some value to our properties.
so you significantly reduce the cost of operating the property, and then in addition
Mhm.
to that, you bring up the rents, right? So the revenue, the income that comes in also increases.
Yep.
But I'm curious, why would so low rent, right? So why would like these type of properties have low rent?
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, you wouldn't. It's kind of almost counter to you. You were almost like a unbelievable sense, but like, a lot of these properties are owned by mom and pop operators, right? Somebody that's just built this and owned it for a long time, and they're not really that concerned about increasing people's rent consistently over time, they're kind of like, oh, the rent was this. I'll just keep the rent this. The rent was $50. It's $50. And its rent's been $50 for like the last 6 years. They don't want to raise it because the last time they raised rent, they raised it to $60. Well, 10 people left and they're like, oh, I don't want to raise rent because if I raise rent, 10 people are going to leave. So I'll just keep it at $50. It's been $50 for like years. And like, they're like, yeah, that's good. And so that's like a lot of times the type of operator that you have. You don't have a more of a savvy operator. They're just kind of like, nah, it works. I stay full. I'm at 95% full, 99, somewhere, really high percentage full, but that's because the rates are really low.
And they're not like business savvy, right? So, and then that comes back to low occupancy as well, right? Is it hard to like fill this kind of property? So like, I'm thinking of the marketing side. Like, how would you market that? I mean, it would be local marketing, right? But then like, what would the message be, right? So I guess that these mom and pop operators are also, not business savvy, and properties like this that have low occupancies because they don't know how to market them, right, and sell them.
Yeah. So let me give you an example too. And these are, sometimes these are not even just people that are not business savvy. These are people that are probably larger than we are, larger than my company is, right? So they have more than 16 properties. But when we bought these properties, right? When we bought these properties, you would go to their website, right? And if you go to their website, you could reserve a unit, right? So you can see, okay, they have 5x5s, they have 10x10s, and they have 10x20s. Okay, I can click reserve. I click reserve. All it does is give me an appointment, like, oh, show up here between 9 to 6 and schedule an appointment to get your unit rented. And you're like, okay, well, so now I got to show up when there's somebody in the office, right? And I don't get off work till 5 and they leave at 6. So I don't have a very long window of time to get there and unload stuff. Instead, I have to come there on a weekend. I don't want to do that on a weekend. I'd rather spend time with my family or go to a football game or something. And so you're just kind of like, there's a lot of this sort of friction there, right? And when we took those properties over, we immediately make it available so that they could rent online. So they could, you
Pay
don't
right
have to
there.
reserve. It's rent now. So then you click, okay, here, put in your credit card, put it register, put in where you
Cool.
are, right? And then you have a unit that you can just drive to whenever you're ready. You don't have to go there by 6. We're open till 9. So because we don't need somebody in the office, we just make sure our gates are open till 9, right? And so are accessible till 9. And so now a person can say, okay, well, I can just go there after work. I don't have to rush over there. Just go there and get my stuff and put it in there because I already have my gate code. I already signed everything. And you would think that sounds like everybody should have that. Like I'm very surprised that everybody doesn't have that functionality in your website, right? But these are two groups that were bigger than us. Like they're bigger than us, and they don't, right? So it's not like
And they're literally making it
it's just the
impossible
mom
to
and pop
buy.
owners. Yeah, it's not just the mom and pop owners who are just like, hey, I don't know technology, I don't understand technology. These are groups that have a lot of facilities, right? And that's the way that sometimes they operate. And you just think that, yeah, they should be able to do better, right? And so we think, yeah, we should be able to do better. So just like you're asking, how can you increase the occupancy? You just make it less friction, right?
Yeah.
We're open more hours, make it easier to do it online or to just call in, and you don't have to do it on a Saturday or Sunday or reduced hours when they have, they're only there in the office for 4 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, right? So
So
things like that.
then you increase the occupancy, and then you're not afraid to bump up the rents a little bit more, because even if you lose 2, 10, 15 renters, you're able to like increase the occupancy, right? And then expansion possible operational inefficiencies, you don't need people in there anymore, so you reduce costs, reduce salaries. And then for expansion possibilities, what do you mean by that, man?
So a lot of times you can, next to these self-storage facilities, oftentimes there is like land, right? So we've purchased additional land. Sometimes they actually come with land, right? And maybe it doesn't come with extra land, but what it does come with is, like I'll tell you, our very first property that we bought, it had an office there in the front, but it was like a trailer. So it was kind of a really junky office, right? It was like not good. But that was the office, right? And now we don't need anybody in the office. So what are we going to do with that? We demolished it, right? It was just trailers, junk. So we just junked it, right? And instead we put parking there. So now we just lined the place. We, poured the concrete and lined it with parking. So now we have some revenue generating, activities there, when previously it was an office that was a junky office and that we don't need, right? So this is what I mean, that you can expand. Now at other facilities where we have, there was an office. However, we don't need the office again because we don't need anybody there. So we turn that office into a rental, like a commercial rental, right? So now we have a commercial renter who rents there and pays us to have that office, right? Or we have a residential renter. There's a different one. We have a residential renter because it's more like a 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, right? So now we're having revenue generating from these. We're generating revenue where previously it was an office and was not collecting any money from that particular part. We also have portable units that we're about to put down at like some of our places have some extra space, but not a ton, right? It's not enough where you can build, right? You can't build right up to the fence line everywhere. Sometimes you have to have a setback, so you might not be able to build, might not be worth it to just build, but you can put down portable units. So you can buy a portable unit, put it down, create additional self-storage units, and do that like pretty easily, right? So, and you could put them in these odd places where putting a building wouldn't really fit. You know what I mean? So this is where you can add extra places of storage, even though you haven't added any extra land. Now, if you can add extra land, even better, right? You can have options to do all of that stuff. So that's what we mean by that.
Cool. Well, Powell, it's been very interesting, man. If anybody else, out there listening, maybe we got an active real estate investor looking for a group who may want to become part of Multifamily Masters, or we got some, some passive real estate investors who may want to start investing into self-storage, or even some multifamily deals that you may have going on right now or in the near future, or we have some aspiring real estate investors who may just want to connect. What would be the best place for them to find you, man?
I would say the best place is probably on socials. So Instagram, I would say it would be a really good one. So if those of you who have Instagram, you just search at Powell.Chee. So POWELL.CHEE. So just my name, first name dot last name. I'm the only one. There's no other Powell Chees out there. So you just connect with me there. Send me a DM if you're actually interested in like setting up a call, or you're actually interested in, hey, I want to be put on your list for deals. If you DM me the word Radiant, so that's our business, Radiant, RADIANT. So if you just DM me that word Radiant, we'll send you an automatic message back to link to connect, as well as be part of our list for future deals. But yeah, socials. Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn a little bit. So I would say mostly like Instagram or Facebook would be great.
Nice. Well, Powell.
Oh, can I say that I do have a YouTube channel too? I have a YouTube channel where I put out I do YouTube lives where I just have people just kind of give me questions about self-storage or about investing, and I just answer the questions live, and I put them up on YouTube as well.
Great, man. So we'll have your YouTube, your Facebook, your Instagram, and all of the things that you just mentioned, including, your website and to the Multifamily Masters and all of that, on the description of wherever this podcast appears. It'll appear everywhere. So yeah, we'll have that all in there.
Thank you.
So that people can connect with you pretty easily. And it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you very much for all the insights that you shared. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it, and thank you to all your modern kings and queens out there as well.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Modern Real Estate Investor Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate you, and we're super grateful about being part of your journey of becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur and having it all. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will be impacted positively. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be across all areas. And if you thought this episode was really valuable, share it on your social media as a post or a story. we have a special gift for all of those who contribute to the Modern Kings and Queens movement. So for those of you who decided to share this episode and help us spread our message, send me a message letting me know on any social media platform at Alex Ramirez, the Modern King. I have a special surprise for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.